Hello and welcome back to Profile Shots. I'm your host, Landon Muonio, and today I'm joined by Hunter Lo and Ethan Pluimer. And today we're going to talk about Japanese anime movies.
For my movie, I chose Akira.
In a 2019 post-nuclear fallout Japan, a secret military project turns a biker gang member into a rampaging psychic psychopath that only two teenagers and a group of psychics can stop.
For my movie, I chose Princess Mononoke, or Mononoke Hime in Japanese.
In medieval fantasy Japan, a young prince of an elderly tribe is cursed by a demonized boar god and must journey to the west to find a cure. Along the way, he encounters a young human woman fighting to protect the forest and a matriarch leader of an iron-forging river town who is trying to destroy it. For my movie, I chose a silent voice. In modern Japan, a grade school student bullies the new girl in school who has a hearing impairment, and she transfers to another school afterwards. Years later, the former bully is tormented by his behavior and sets out to make amends. But is it already too late to right his wrongs? Guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to have you both on talking about, I think, three really important movies. Not just like anime movies, but important movies, like, period.
I think each of these are an outstanding movie for their own reason, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, pleasure to be here.
So as I previously mentioned, I chose Akira, and my experience, the first time that I watched this movie, was I had just gotten this light set up in my room, and I'd gotten back, had countless friends recommend this to me, and my lights would sync up with this with my screen, and I remember being so excited because they had told me that this was the perfect movie, and I was not disappointed. This movie absolutely delivers when it comes to color and animation. I think that is something that it does outstandingly well. I have a hard time knocking on just the animation of it. Granted, I think that this movie is still very much flawed. It's an interesting movie in and of itself, but the story is a beast of its own. I'm excited to tackle it today.
Yeah, I agree with you about the animation. I heard that like multiple studios like tried to work on Akira at the same time, and you could definitely tell like the production quality is like top tier. It's really smooth.
It is crisp. It is made up of over 160,000 different cells. Each of them is hand painted, which is wild to me to think about. The first time that I watched it, I was kind of under the impression that it was going to be a digestible movie, which, come to find out, it's very difficult to follow along. I think that the story and the writing in this is wonderful. It's a great story, and there's a lot of interesting characters. However, I think a lot of people, the first time watching it, have difficulty understanding everything that's happening. Some of the characters can be a little hard to relate to or understand, and that's a reasonable gripe. So I will say my first time was not nearly as good as the second or third time that I watched this film.
I agree. When I first watched Akira, I did not pay attention. I didn't pay attention at all. And I think that was a detriment. And so, like, when I watched it for Profile Shots, right, for this episode, I was watching it and I was like skipping ahead a little bit, but I think I absorbed more from like talking with people about it and then like really trying to sit down and like focus on all of the characters.
Yeah.
But it's not really about the characters. If you want to talk about the characters more, just read the manga. But I think it's more about like the setting and like the world building, I think.
Yes.
That's mainly what Akira's
and the destruction of that world building, which is something that this movie, in my opinion, does better than any other movie I think I've ever seen. It feels like to me, it feels like you took Gotham City and you made it cyberpunk and then you put it in Japan. And then you take that whole city and you just destroy it with a bunch of kids who have powers. And that to me is entertaining in and of itself.
I'd agree. It set a huge precedent for like cyberpunk and Blade Runner and that kind of aesthetic. And I think that's why it's endured for so long, is that people have, there are so many homages in modern film to Akira with like not just like the motorcycle slide, but like it's in memes, it's in like music and stuff. Like I know Kanye West was wearing the Akira jacket at one point, and then there's that Akira meme where it's right after that fight, and then he's getting like Tetsuo's getting the
headaches, the surgery,
the head thing.
Yeah,
Akira. Yeah, like it's huge. It's still its effect is like still being felt like today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important aspect of this movie is the cultural relevance. And the reason that I chose it personally, because I think that this was one of the first films to really be introduced to the West. Previous to this, there weren't really many successful films or Japanese animated films. And so this really put them on the map. And so in a way, I don't want to say this movie walked so others could run, but it was there before a lot of these other ones were. You know, Ghost in the Shell as a product kind of came after this, and like all of these beautiful films that we can now acknowledge as a great part of film history are partly due because of this. And I think that's a great thing, and my appreciation runs deep for this movie simply for that reason alone.
Perfect. Hunter, what did you think of Akira?
I watched it for like the first time just like the other day. So it's hard to digest. Like your first time watching it, I can describe it only as in like an acid trip. I've never taken acid before, right? But after watching that movie, I like 100% feel like I know what it feels like to be on an acid trip. The movie is a classic, right? So you hear about it all the time. It's one of like Evangelion and all these other shows, right? And that kind of style of animation. And you can tell just by looking at it. Like we said, all these are hand-drawn, which is just like, amazing, right? Cell by cell. But it touches on some really deep topics, right? However, I feel like they're a little rushed sometimes, and you're just trying to figure out what's happening in the movie. But still very entertaining in a lot of ways.
I'd agree with like the rushed aspect, and I briefly touched on how this is an adaptation of the manga, where it's like the beginning of the manga, and like I've heard it's like 2/3 in, and that's like the ending. But it's like it's not the full story. They cut out characters and subplots, and they just added in stuff. And I think it's good. I think it definitely could have been like if there was an Akira and like a modern Akira anime, like they remade it, I'd watch that in like a heartbeat. But for now, all we have is the movie.
Yeah, true. And one of the interesting things, because you previously mentioned the manga, is this movie was produced in the middle of the manga's run. So the author didn't even necessarily have an ending. And so the manga was then shaped by this film as well. And as you previously mentioned, a lot of the characters don't feel fully fleshed out. Kaori doesn't feel fleshed out. Like Tetsuo's girlfriend, what is she in the movie for? I don't know what she really does. And then
She just kind of stands around.
yeah, she does. I don't
It's kind
know.
of bad for her. That's like one of the key moments. You just like she showed up for 2 scenes basically, and the last scene was not pretty.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, she only really serves to provide like an extra bit of gore, it felt like, in the movie, when it could have been so much more powerful if the audience had a connection to her.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that at all.
Yeah. I don't feel a connection to any of these characters, in my opinion. Like they're not all unlikable, but they all have like they're all just so they're just characters. Like in the most generic sense, not generic, but in the most like basic sense, they're all just characters. It's just like a plot. It's like reading a history book almost.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not like, oh man, I really feel for Tetsuo and Kanada's relationship. It's like, no, I don't know. They just it kind of happened, in my opinion. But
no,
it's fine.
I agree though, because like even watching it the first like 20 minutes, it's hard to tell who the main character is. Like the only like significant thing that you can like, oh, that's probably the main character is because you see the cover screen of the movie, right? And you're like, oh, he has the red motorcycle. That's probably the main character. But even then, you start questioning yourself, like, is that really him, or what's his name?
I kind of want to move into more of the things that I think the movie does pretty well. Because we are digging on it pretty hard.
Let's not just like trash Akira. Oh, the worst movie on the list. No, it's not. It's not.
I think that there are a couple themes that it really touches upon. Granted, some of these themes can be easy to miss. The most obvious of these themes is destruction of the environment around you and also the self-destruction. One of the quotes, or to paraphrase from the movie, something that I thought encapsulates the whole entire vibe of this movie was Kei's dialogue with Kaneda when they first get arrested. She talks about amoebas, and she relates how if you had an amoeba, all they do is consume, right? But if you were to give an amoeba power of humans, that amoeba would then become a god. But that amoeba only knows how to consume. Therefore, it's going to use its human powers to consume. If you give a human the power of a god, and all it has is its self-destruction and hatred, it's only going to do those exact same things, just on a much larger scale. And I think that quote for me encapsulated all of that feeling that this movie has just within a couple words. And I really liked that on its own, I guess.
To piggyback off of that, like the giving humans the power of gods, like that's literally what the nuclear weapons are and stuff. It's like, so this is dystopian, right? And it's like, oh yeah, because of the nukes, like the atomic bombings in Japan, whatever. Like they thought that that's what started like World War III or whatever. Like, but it was the ESP stuff. But that's still like, it's still a theme, right? Giving like the this is not really an Oppenheimer discussion, but like giving humans that much power, not a good thing, not a good thing. And I think that the ESP powers are definitely like, it's a really good allegory. It's a really slick allegory, I think.
Yeah, and the movie is just chocked full of allusions to World War II and post-World War II Japan. Talking about the bombs, kind of on that topic, Akira is a symbol. If you remember, he's a little kid. He's a little boy, may I rephrase. And obviously that was the name of the bomb I believe they dropped in Hiroshima. And so that
didn't even think about that.
Description to me, like soon as I saw Akira, and somebody pointed out in some video essay, I was like, oh wow, it's actually very powerful. I don't know, this film in general, so many of these themes and illusions go missed by us, because I don't feel like this movie was necessarily intended for a Western audience to begin with. I felt like it was meant for post-World War II Japan, and it fits that time very well. Understanding this movie in that context makes a lot more sense to me.
I have a little bit of a different take on that. Like, the amiibo thing was like, I understood what they were trying to get at, but it felt a little like, this is what I meant by like the movie felt rushed, is that came out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
It was like very random. And if you weren't paying close attention, you wouldn't understand what they're talking. Like, where did this even come from, right? But with the meaning, like we have the meaning, right? I see it as like, because the idea is that everyone has power, this kind of power, and they say that in the film, is that everyone has the potential and has this power within them, right? But the idea is that if it's used in the wrong way and is in the wrong hands, like not within hands of humanity, but in the hands of this bacteria, amoeba, right? Then it becomes very destructive because of the way we use it, not because that we have it, right? So it's the idea of using the power that you have in the correct way for a better reason, rather than one that is destructive. That's what I think the meaning of the movie was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if like they can use their ESP powers to like create stuff, but they can like, or create like anything like positive in like the manga or whatever, but like all they do is like create like, oh, the bears can walk and like, but it's mostly for like destruction and stuff. So even like, or well, scratch that. They do create an entirely new world.
Yeah, they do create
like
an entirely new world. Ending. Is
Yeah,
like, right?
yes.
But even like they use their ESP powers to like the children, right? They use their ESP powers to save the general, the lieutenants. The main character in the freaking end, you know, like he's like, oh, we can give up our lives to save him if we all try, right? So I think there's some silver lining in there. It's not all bad and destruction, I think. Just to be aware that, like, maybe the majority of the movie is, but to be aware that there's hope in the end, you know.
My takeaway was it's more important to be preventative than reactive, because there were a lot of characters who were reactive instead of trying to stop all of this. This happened 30 years ago. That first explosion was something that occurred previously, and despite that, all of the scientists the colonel included, and the politicians did nothing to prevent this from occurring a second time. And so it just keeps on occurring and occurring and occurring, and the colonel just wants to prevent anything terrible from happening. And despite all that, everyone is against him, trying to prevent him from happening. Which I like that you mentioned that he's the main character in the end, because I also agree with that take.
That the colonel's the main character?
I think so. And towards the end of the movie, I think he becomes the main character.
I don't know if he's necessarily the main character.
He's definitely a
main character.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Like again,
you do spend a lot more time with him, I think.
Yeah.
Like maybe equal amounts of time like Canada and the colonel, maybe.
I think the point of the movie is that there is no main character, and that we like they all are like everyone's equally as important. You know, they all have their role to play per se.
The council, they blame him. They blame him for doing what the president's doing, right?
Yeah.
I noticed that in my second rewatch. I was like, oh, that like little bit of dialogue slipped past. They're like, you're funding the resistance and the religious movement, and it's like, no, he's not. It's the president. It's the guy who you guys are backing.
Yeah, Mr. Nezu, the corruption embodiment himself in that whole movie. That guy, with the curly rat, the kind of rat-looking dude.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about that.
Medicine, right? It's the one that died trying to take his medicine, right?
Yes. Yeah. And one thing that's interesting is where he died is the exact same place that the main revolutionary, I think his name is Ryushu, they died right next to one another.
Oh, interesting.
And so I kind of thought that as like putting them in the exact same category, which made sense because what really were the revolutionaries doing in the movie?
They had no. They were just like a side diversion plot. I'm sure in like I've never read the manga.
Yeah.
It's on my list, but I'm sure that they have like a bigger plot. Oh, let's go like have like a side arc where we go to the revolutionary camp and we do all this and that. But in the movie, no, nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
It was there for jokes. My friends and I watched it with some friends, and we were always screaming like communism because it's red flags, you know. Like why not? You know.
I don't know if communism's. I mean, it's definitely not a theme. I don't really see it.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Why else?
Becoming one with the giant blob guy. I don't know at the end. Which is amazing animation with the big blob.
Yeah.
With Tetsuo's robot arm and all the like material like clicking and stuff. It was fantastic.
You see each individual piece as he's like laying it there, which was so beautiful. I've rewatched that scene multiple times, and if I had to choose any scene that were my favorite, I think it's that scene because you can clearly see the emotions on Tetsuo's face as it's happening to him, and he's realizing that all this power he was granted, he still doesn't have control.
Hunter, do you have a favorite scene out of Akira?
I feel like every scene was kind of memorable. Like. There's a scene where they made the big animals, right? And like he's in the hospital room, and I'm like, "What? It looks like Five Nights at Freddy's." Like, no, straight out.
It does.
It does. It totally
I was
does.
like, "What is that doing in this movie? There's no way that's like a real thing, right?" Or I suppose the throne room, like where he's on the chair, right? And it's that throne
In the Olympia.
Yeah, Olympia. That's symbolic in a lot of ways. I feel like trying to be king of your own world, and really you don't have anything under control.
What was your first time watching Princess Mononoke?
Princess Mononoke. So it's a Ghibli film, of course, right? I mean, Ghibli films are pretty famous in the animation world for Japanese animation, at least. I grew up watching a lot of the Ghibli films, so I don't actually remember my first time. It's probably between like 5 years old and 10, somewhere between there, right? When I first watched it, like it's one of like Disney movies. You don't actually understand the plot or anything. You're just watching it just like because it's so fast moving. Everything's just coming at you. Very beautiful, right? And I think that's the thing that probably struck me the most, and like was the way it looked. Right? It's just so beautiful and very memorable. Like very memorable. And the music, of course. Music is always like every time you hear it, it's just so nostalgic to me. So I've probably seen that movie like 10, 15 times. Watch it every couple of years.
Ethan, what was your first time watching Princess Mononoke?
I was studying abroad, and I was so excited to find out that they had the Studio Ghibli movies on Netflix. So it was like one of the first things that I did was watch Princess Mononoke because I've been wanting to see it for like the longest time, and I didn't want to stream it illegally and like thinking that I get bad subtitles or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, so every time when I was watching this during lunch, I would just fall back in and like, become absolutely enamored with the characters. And the character that absolutely stole it for me was Ashitaka. I think he is one of the most well-written characters and such a virtuistic person. And I was very inspired by this movie, just simply watching him and the way that he engages with other characters.
My first time watching Princess Mononoke was last night.
Oh.
So it is fresh. It is fresh in my mind. I it is so good compared to the only other Ghibli movie that I've watched, which is House of the Castle. I'm sure I've watched other Ghibli movies, but I've just like forgotten about them. But I'll never forget about Princess Mononoke. That it is very, very good. I like the music. I think the thing that I liked about it the most is like the way that nature's presented, right? Specifically with like the grass, how that moves, and it just feels very nostalgic for me. It almost feels like a Zelda game to me.
No,
Like,
I can see that.
yeah, like it's under that same like file in my brain, but like especially with like the ocarina music almost. Like I really like that. It really hits me right into my nostalgia. It makes me feel nostalgia for something I've never felt, I've never experienced, which is really weird. Shout out to Scott, who's been on the podcast before. But he told me that they use CGI for like the demons and all like the evil spirits and stuff, and then obviously they used all the hand drawn stuff for like all the good creatures. But I think that's interesting to like separate like that inorganic from the organic kind of deal. Maybe that's life from death, but I don't know if death is CGI. Maybe it's the death of modern hand-drawn animation, but.
Yeah, I think this movie explores a lot of dualities. And one of the ones that I found very interesting was exploring how it explored good and bad. Ashitaka to me represented something in the middle of that. This movie to me felt like it was almost refuting the idea of good and bad. Like you had Eboshi, who by all definitions should be a bad person if you look at purely what she's doing to the forest, right? And you look at how the forest is taking lives from people at the village. Well, Iboshi's also taking in all these people, all these women from brothels, saving them, helping out all these people with like terrible diseases. And the forest is giving so much life to all of the animals within it. I mean, neither one of these people are necessarily, or things, or objects, whatever you want to call them, are good or bad. And Ashitaka tries to find the good in evil and the evil in good. And he does such a wonderful job of exploring that dichotomy between it and trying to mend it. You can really see it in that one scene in particular when San, or Princess Mononoke, is about to attack Lady Boshi, and he casually walks up between them, and he stops them from fighting. I think that's such a beautiful scene, and that perfectly set that for me.
Yes. No, I think you're completely right. But this movie has a lot of Buddhism, Shintoism philosophy, right? Like about the middle path and how there's no right or wrong, right? Just how it is. And Ashitaka's like one of my favorite lines is he's come to see with eyes unclouded. Yes, that is like my favorite line in all the show. To be unbiased and to just take things as it is and to judge for yourself whether or not it's right or wrong.
For me, it's not like a usual like good or evil dichotomy. It's like everybody's on that gray scale, but what is evil is like hate. That's really what it is. It's like, because in a lesser movie, right, they would go, oh, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, right? And the bad guys, oh, they're evil and like they have like their purple like evil magic, right? And they're just like Okay, take for example like Raya and the Last Dragon or whatever. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but it's one of the modern Disney movies and stuff. They have like these like purple smoke spirit things that turn people to stone, right? And that's supposed to be that like nature versus like or life versus death kind of thing. But here it's like it corrupts people. It like makes them like squelch out blood and everything, and it like raises the entire ground. It's not like a generic good versus evil. It's something more than that.
It's like a disease.
Really
it's portrayed as like a disease in the show, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, it does corrupt and it's slow, but people change. I think the big thing in the show. Like Lady Eboshi, she changes at the end. From all her like evil, like we're gonna take over the forest and destroy everything. She's like, I have to thank Ashitaka at the end.
I liked your point. You really can feel how contagious Miyazaki wanted the hatred to feel in this movie. And I think the embodiment of hatred as a curse on Ashitaka was such a great choice, both, one, for character design, but two, just for moving that plot forward. I mean, physically being able to see that hatred as, like you were saying, that purple thing. There's this purple going around his body.
He's got the God of War chains on him.
It was pretty dope. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really liked how they expressed hatred just as a whole in here, and how Ashitaka was able to change the hearts of people and find that hatred and still find a way to cure it, if you will.
Yeah. I think that's something that they do well, is that Ashitaka is not free from hatred. Because like when he's talking to Eboshi about like what she wants to do, his arm, he wants to kill her, right? And he says, I would let my arm kill you if it would lift the curse, but I'm afraid it wouldn't stop there. And that's the big thing, is that it's hard to control. Like just after you lash out once, lashing out again is just as easy.
When he lashes out, he like he really lashes out. When he's firing at the samurai when he first starts his journey, like their arms get like comically chopped off. Yeah. Like it's got that like ham bone dissection where you see like the bone and then the tissue around it, flesh, yeah. And they get their arms chopped off and they go like, whoa, my arms are chopped off. And then like when he's riding on the horse and then he shoots the arrow and the head just flies completely off. And you see the arrow also like whistling around. It's fantastic. It's animated really nicely.
Ashitaka feels bad when he kills those samurai though. Like he tells I don't know, the old man that he shouldn't have gotten involved, right? And the old man tells him that you saved some people back there, and that you live and you die, and that's how life is, right? Like again, there is no good, there is no bad. It's just how it is. Life and death go hand in hand, and just kind of comes and goes.
Are you talking about the old man wearing like the stilts?
Yeah, stilts. Yeah.
I totally thought that the plot twist was going to be that he was the emperor, and I was like, that would have been so cool. Like, I have all of the emperor's guards, and I'm just gonna walk around. I'm a traveling monk, and then like if he was the emperor, that would have been great. Like, the emperor wants his head, or wants the head of the forest spirit. I'm the emperor. I've came finally to collect the forest spirit's head.
Miyazaki's watching this punch in the air right now.
Man, I wish I would have taken Landon's advice.
I feel like that's too stereotypical. Like I would, like if you watch any other movie, that's just like, that's a given, kind of thing.
Speaking of funny characters, one of my favorite characters is, I think her name's Toki or Teki.
Toki, yeah.
Yeah, Toki. When he the husband comes back, he's like, you should have let the wolves eat him or something. I don't know. I thought she was so funny throughout the entirety of it. She's got a lot of really good dialogue, which is something that this movie, like, not to compare too much, but this movie does such a better job with dialogue than I think Akira does. I think that the dialogue is very salient and very interesting here.
Do we have anything else to talk about with Princess Mononoke? Because I have one final thing to say, which is, can we talk about the music for Princess Mononoke? Because we briefly talked about it, but that is... I also have another thing. I have two more things to say about Princess Mononoke. What do you guys think about the music, first off? Is there anything that like stands out to you? Because I've heard the Princess Mononoke theme and I didn't even realize it. And that might be why I'm nostalgic for it too. Is because I hear it during Japanese labs so much, and I'm like, wow, I think this is familiar. Oh, it's Princess Mononoke.
It was all build up just for this.
That's
Yes.
I've been conditioned.
Conditioned. No, I think the opening scene with like you see the plains and mountains. That one's very it's very like famous. Like as it's just like nice study music in the background too, and like every time you hear that song now though, you can literally see the plains like just moving. It's just absolutely amazing. And there's a song that they sing in Japanese that I don't even know the name at the end, and when he's in the tavern, or like not the tavern, the cave with San. Yeah, so that song is also very iconic. I don't remember the name for it in Japanese for the life of me though.
Yeah, I think the score for this movie is phenomenal, and it's one of those movies that without the score, it's still great, but the score just brings it to the next level and really makes it enjoyable at any given time. I love like listening to Ghibli music all the time when I'm like studying, and so I've been listening to a lot of Princess Mononoke as of recently, and hadn't even realized it. So when I went and rewatched, I was like, I had that similar experience to you with like JC Lab, and I was like, oh whoa, I have heard this in like other places before. So I think it's if that music can stand outside of the movie, that's how you know it's got a good score, in my opinion.
First time that I watched a silent voice, I was at my buddy's cabin, and we watched The Grave of the Fireflies, which is fantastic. I didn't want to pick it for this one because that would have made this episode really sad. I think more sad than what is going to happen when we start talking about a silent voice. Which I'm glad we got the fun ones out of the way. But yeah, I watched it at my buddy's cabin with like 6 of us, and we started it, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is gonna be like fun," and one guy was like, "Nope, it's not. It's not gonna be fun. We should stop. We should stop talking right now." And then like the first couple of scenes happened, and then we stopped. We were like so quiet. The entire we were quiet for like 2 hours afterwards too. It was probably one of the best movie watching experiences I've ever had, from like how impactful it was. This is one of my top 4 movies of all time. It was such an important movie for me to watch, I think. What was your guys' experiences with the silent voice?
For me, I watched it like almost as soon as it came out. So not in theaters, but like just alone in my house. And like I'm like, oh, a new movie came out. Okay, let's watch it. And like the very beginning scenes were so hard for me that I absolutely hated the movie because of I hated every single character because of the opening 20 minutes or so. Like every single one. It doesn't matter what they do after. Like you're just like, no, you don't exist in my book anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like really aesthetic person, so like if it looks pretty, I'm like, oh my gosh, right? I think that even pissed me off more is that the characters all look, in the art of the anime is so amazing, but like inside they're just ugly, you know.
Yeah.
So it just hurt my heart to watch the whole entire show, and I just like I felt anger toward every single one and every action they did. So it was a long time, and this last time I just rewatched it like last week. I skipped the opening because I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it, and I like the movie better because I skipped the opening.
Okay.
So all of the bullying that happens in the first 20 minutes, cut out of my life. It never happened. I just kind of know. Yeah. So
I think as long as you know it, that's probably fine. Because I think the first 20 minutes are what made it so impactful for me. Was like his whole redemption arc. It's very cool to see how he changes. But going back to answering your question, the first time I watched this, it was with my girlfriend, and I remember just the whole time like trying to hide my tears so hard towards the end of the movie, especially when like those X's fell off their face. I lost it. I would like pull one of these, you know, like trying to hide it. I think that it's so phenomenal emotionally. It's such a roller coaster. this is one of those movies that I imagine you watched this with your friends.
Yeah.
You guys probably came out a little closer after that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's the deal. I had never met any of these guys before. I only met like 3 of them. Right. It was my roommate and then all of his friends.
No.
And it definitely brought us all closer together after watching that. It was great. So I was with them for like a week, and it continued.
That's the perfect way to break the ice.
It was so good. This is like day 3, though. This is day 3. We had gotten acquainted. An unbreakable bond.
Yeah,
Watching Silent Voice with 4 strangers.
Yeah. I remember the first time I watched it thinking, I need to watch that again.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. I don't think that there has been a movie since that has made me feel so deeply emotional since this one. And it is an amazing experience. I wish I could have experienced this in theaters for the first time. And if it ever comes back out on another run, I know I'm going immediately, without hesitation.
I agree. I will cry as much in the theater as I did on both watches.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get through. On my rewatch, the main thing that stood out to me is just how much foreshadowing there is in this movie.
Yeah.
I have it written down just so that I'm not going to gloss over anything. So to start the foreshadowing, the bridge notebook scene.
Yeah.
When Shoya is trying to give Shoko her notebook back, and try to make amends, and she's trying to read it, and he drops it, right, and she goes in to the river with the koi fish, and he tries to grab her,
And he misses.
and he misses, just like the ending. That was really awful. Second bit of foreshadowing, when they go to the art, they go on like the art walk, and they're on that big slant, right?
He falls.
And he falls, and he slips, and then she tries to grab him, and then you get the close up of their hands slipping. Oh my gosh, that was absolutely insane. Another thing, when it's like the one of the first scenes that Shoya's on the bridge, right, and he's about to jump, and he sees people playing on the beach with fireworks, which is exactly what happens at the end with Shoko. Is that she's on the balcony with the fireworks in the background, and then he's running after her. I'm sure we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And the last bit of foreshadowing that I found was between the 2 mothers. Is that at first Shoya's mother is apologizing to Shoko's mother, and you see, and this is in elementary school, and that's when Shoko's mother gives her the same injury, and you see that she's bleeding a little bit on her chin. And then at the end of the movie, you see Shoya's or Shoko's mother then apologizing to Shoya's mother in the hospital for what happened. Without
No other way to say
it. There's a lot of apologizing in this movie, which I'm sure there's more foreshadowing with that. But those are the things that I found that I was like completely. I got really excited there because it was so impactful to me. Like watching it, and you jump out of your seat and you're like, no, I can't believe that they just did that. It's insane. The way that all the characters kind of blend into each other, if that's the way that I could say it. Especially with Shoko and Shoya both thinking that they're the reason for the others, for ruining each other's lives, which is obviously he's the bigger problem. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that parallel.
Yeah, I like what you're talking about, or what you're saying about the characters. To me, the whole time I was watching, I was thinking, these don't feel like characters. These feel like real people. And it felt like we were getting dropped into their life, and just seeing how unfortunate it had been and had become of each of them. I don't know. It was just such a beautiful storytelling. I think it's really hard to top this movie, like in terms of characters for me, because like you said, they're so hateable, and that's what makes them feel like that's exactly what makes them feel real. Seeing everything that Shoya does to Shoko is just, how could you ever be like this? You know, how could you ever? You're thinking that, and you hate him for that whole time, and then you see he hates himself too. It's like, okay, you kind of you almost have to swallow that, and you feel what these characters are feeling in almost every single moment. You can see Shoko's how upset she is with herself when she's trying to tell Shoya that she loves him, and she grabs her skirt and like looks at him like all flustered. And so many of those scenes just tell you immediately what's going on in their head, and it hurts that they can't just say it to one another, you know?
Yeah. Hunter, I do agree with you about how hateable a lot of the characters
Yeah,
are.
no.
Just before
Yes,
you say anything,
yeah.
I do. It's the black haired girl specifically.
Oh.
And-
She doesn't redeem herself at all.
No, she doesn't
Ueno or
at all.
whatever. Yeah.
I have no idea.
No,
Naoru?
it's Ueno. It's Ueno, I'm
Naoru?
pretty
Okay.
sure.
Oh.
But yeah, she like ideally, like visually, she's like perfect, right? And then like you just see her personality and the things she does. Like she goes out of her way to
Yeah.
just bully and be in the way of everyone's like happiness, you know. Back to your point though, like you said blend, and I think that entire idea of blending is like it perfectly describes them, right? Because they're all broken, and it's the idea of how these broken people, like they break each other just a little bit, but together they all fit in that very nicely and fix each other by the very end, at the very least, you know.
He's trying to make this decision to be a better person, whether or not he's making the right decision. And that's the message that I picked up from it. Any day and every day, you decide to be a better person.
Because he was planning to. Well, I briefly talked about that he was planning. He was planning to commit suicide, and he had blotted out those last days in the calendar, and he had sold all of his stuff. But he just has this. He's almost reincarnated, right? He has this entirely new life that he's like really trying to cling on to, but then he can't let himself at the same time because he still sees everybody as an ex. He still has that depression where, like, he by the end of the movie, right? He finally he sees people as without their exes, right? And he I think that's, you could say that he gets like reborn, right, and has a new look on life after his mother finds out and makes him not not commit suicide. But I think that the new life is like that at the end. It starts and he'll be like he won't be depressed anymore.
I kind of disagree with you. Like, I don't think he starts a new life at the end of the movie. I think he starts as soon as he falls from the like where he's running after when he falls. You know, like that's where I think he starts, and he makes the promises that he's like Kami-sama, like God, like just give me this like last amount of strength, and I swear I'll turn my life around. That's where his life changes. Is where he decides and has that moment of realization that this is what he wants to do. Like he just needs this last moment. And then from then on, he's reborn.
I want to talk about the suicide scene real quick.
Yes.
Or her attempt at the suicide scene.
Yeah.
That is my favorite scene in probably like any animation. When Shoya trips like on the desk, my heart jumped the first time I watched
He's
that.
not gonna make it.
And then the way they use the curtain and her dress, the way it flows in the wind, that's just beautiful. It was so heart-wrenching and just captivating in that moment. I thought they did such an excellent job with just that one scene. I was very impressed, and I love it.
That scene I felt like came out of nowhere. But that's like, it's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing kind of thing. And that's what makes it so real, I feel like. Is that he's in such a frantic mood because it's like, it was out of nowhere. Like, no one saw that coming at all. No, I actually expected him to die.
You did?
Yeah, I expected one of them to die at the end. And like, not a happy ending. I expected a sad ending for that whole entire show. Like, it just didn't seem... I expect the worst when I see these kind of shows, right? You feel the vibes, you feel the music and all the characters, and you expect things to just go wrong, just to prepare yourself mentally, I guess. So I've seen my fair share.
But in a way, that kind of makes the ending better. The fact that you expect it to end badly, and then the creative choice to use the X's, genius. Absolutely genius. And then watching them fall, I felt a smile on the inside of my body for like the first time. I was just gleeful that he was finally like being able to live his life. Because like you, I thought it was going to end terribly. I thought he was going to have the X's on the faces for the rest of his life. I was like, this dude cannot live in society.
Poor guy.
All right, so we've just discussed all three of these amazing movies. Hopefully, you guys want to watch them for yourself. But that's all for us today for Profile Shots Director's Cut. We'll see you in the next episode.